Yo, if you want to be a freelancer, maybe you already are one and you're just looking for some advice on how to get more clients, grow your network, set your rates, maybe set up a contract to protect yourself, well, you've come to the right place. This video is actually part 2 in my 2-part series. It wasn't meant to turn out that way, it's just that the video was so freaking long that I couldn't subject my friends to what was basically a short film on freelancing. So I chopped it up into 2 parts like an expert video editing chef. And now I have 2 videos. With that being said, don't forget to check out part 1 because obviously what I'm covering in this video is not what was covered in part 1. They're 2 different videos, so if you want to get the full experience, then check out part 1. And this video will be starting from advice nugget number 6 because the first 5 were already covered in the first video. Okay, number 6, and this is a really important one. A lot of people don't do it. I don't know if they're like shy to slap their client with a contract or whatever, but seriously, get a contract, get them to sign it just to protect yourself and make sure that the payment terms are clear. Always get a deposit. I know it's another thing where it's like kind of orkies to ask somebody to pay you before you've started work, but just some sort of sign of faith that they are going to actually be able to pay you. What you can do is you could ask for 25% deposit up front and then, set the payments in stages so that, for example, once you've sent them the storyboard, they send you the next 25%. Once you've received that, then you carry on with the next steps of the job. And then at the end of the job, you can send them like a watermarked, slightly lower res version of the render or whatever it is that you are doing for them. And then they give you the rest of the payment and then you send them the high-res version of the work. Unfortunately, I know of a lot of people who have been screwed over by people who get them to do work and then never pay them. It's something you hear about literally every day from people in the industry. And this is just something you have to do to protect yourself. You're not asking for a full payment up front, but you do need something just to indicate that they are serious because there are people who will mess you around. Obviously, there are special cases, like if you know the person personally and like you know where they live and you could easily just go to their house and pull a little midnight barber on them and cut their hair while they're sleeping if they don't pay you, then cool, don't give them a contract, don't make them pay you a deposit. That's your prerogative if you don't want to make things awkward. But it really is just better, to protect yourself and do that. I've always done this. It saved me a lot of heartache. I've heard the horror stories from friends and acquaintances. Almost every person I know has been screwed over at least once. I don't trust anybody. I would give my own mother a contract to sign. I'm kidding, Mom. I would do you a free animation. I would. I love you. Make sure that the contract stipulates timeframes and deadlines so that you both have a very clear idea of what timelines you need to meet. They know exactly how long you say you're going to take for this thing and there is no confusing language. Everything needs to be crystal clear so that if you do come into any sorts of problems with them, any misunderstandings, you can be like, yo, it says right here exactly what is happening. There is nothing confusing there. And you both have like that physical evidence, that paper trail or, that digital paper trail of what you agreed on in the first place so that, there's no way they can twist around it and change things up or make as if you've screwed up when you very clearly stated what was going to happen. Make sure that you stipulate, what services are provided by you. So for instance, if you're doing an animation and they say that they're going to provide the audio file, they can't come back later and say, oh, but where's the audio? Because you're like, homie, you said in the contract, you signed it, you were going to provide that. So sorry, I'm not doing that. Just make sure that it's very clear what you're doing and what they are doing. You both have your responsibilities for the job clearly laid out. You should also have a clause in your quotation about how many revisions or how much time is allowed for revisions so that if they go very much past that, you can do an additionals quote for that extra time that you hadn't budgeted in beforehand, just to make sure, everything is clear. Be crystal clear about everything through every step of the process. Okay, number 7, this is a big one. A lot of people ask about this is how to set your rates. How do you know what to charge? So firstly, what you're going to have to do is calculate your budget for the month. Like what do you actually need to cover all your costs and all your bills? You're going to need to factor things in like wear and tear on hardware, what your software is going to cost, things like just normal bills like your phone bill, lights and water, rent, food, stuff you need to live, because freelancing is going to be your job. That's how you're going to make money. So just make sure that everything can be covered in this number. Do your budget, work it all out, have your budget for the month. And then you need to take that number and divide it down as if you were actually working a daily job. So if you were working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, how much money would that be per day? So say if you wanted to earn, or you needed to earn 50K per month, dollars, rands, whatever, it's just an example, 50K, whatever. So that would be then 12 and a half per week and 2,500 per day. So there you have your daily rate. If you want to work out what your hourly rate would be, then you just divide that further. So it's like 312.50 per hour. So you have your daily rate, you have your hourly rate. You also need to make sure that you are factoring in tax there, so you are still able to survive once you've been taxed. I don't know what the tax laws are in every country. Obviously, you're going to have to do the research on that yourself. But over here where I am, I'm in South Africa, the tax is pretty high for freelancers. It's brutal. So you need to make sure that you've also worked out what's going to be taken off what you're earning for tax to make sure that you're still covering all your living costs. There are also calculators online that can help you work out your budget. So if it's a little bit daunting, you can go to one of these calculators. I'll put a link to it in the description. And you can just put in all your costs for like gas, petrol, whatever, food, electricity, all that stuff. And it'll help you work out what your monthly budget is and then what you should be charging as your rate. So that's how you can work out your rate. But you also need to be realistic and honest with yourself about your level of experience and, the quality of your work. Because if you're a junior and you were working full-time at a company, you obviously would not be getting paid as much as a senior would be getting paid. You can't expect to, and you can't expect clients, if you're a freelancer, to be paying that amount of money for your work if you've had like a couple months experience working and you know for a fact that your work is not at that level of that sort of daily or hourly rate. So just be honest with yourself about your level of expertise. It would help to actually look at what the monthly salary is for a person of your experience and then match your rates to those a little bit. You would be earning slightly higher than somebody who's working full-time at a job, because a lot of the time they might be getting perks like, medical aid or retirement or something that you are not getting as a freelancer from a company. So you need to factor that in. So you charge slightly higher than what they would be earning per month. But it's a good way just to get an idea of what a reasonable amount of money is to be earning for someone in your position and of your expertise and experience level. So another question with rates is, how should you charge? Should it be hourly? Should it be daily? Should it be per project? Most commonly that I've seen in the animation industry is that it's either per project or it's a daily rate. I don't think I've ever worked with a freelancer who charged hourly. I've never charged hourly because, if it's something that's going to take you, say, 2 hours, say it's a really quick job, then you would charge for a half day really, because you never know what's going to happen. There might be something to like, maybe your software has a glitch or something and you have to troubleshoot that for a while. You don't know it's going to take specifically 2 hours. So you would usually pad out your time anyway a little bit. So per project or daily rate is the most common for animators at least. So if you are going to agree to a per project rate, make sure that it is very clear, very explicit when the deadline is, and that it's not a flexible, the deadline might be here, but it might be 2 weeks later, because then they get pretty much free reign to mess you around and get a lot of work out of you that might turn out not to be worth it. So if you have a set deadline and it goes past the deadline, not through any fault of your own, if they keep adding stuff on that's out of scope and stuff, then you know that you can charge extra for that. Make sure that there is a very clear scope on it. So again, if they add stuff that, is out of scope, if they're adding on more characters or whatever that they did not specify before, then you know that you can charge extra for that. But that's why it's a little bit safer to charge a daily rate, because then it's literally per day. They tell you the scope of the project. You say, okay, this is going to take me 5 days to do. You agree on that. And then they keep adding stuff that pushes the deadline out further and further. You just keep charging for, however many extra days it goes over. You can agree to a project rate and then say anything over and above that will be charged at my daily rate. That will also work. So those are just some guidelines on how you can charge, different projects sometimes require different methods of how you charge. You can look at the project and decide for yourself whether you want to settle on a per project rate or if you want to do a daily rate rather. So number 8 is build good relationships with your clients and the companies that you work for. The thing with being a freelancer is that you actually need to aim at building a really good client base. So you have clients that you do stuff for regularly. You shouldn't be looking at clients as once-off deals. You want those people to keep coming back to you, to keep calling you for work. So currently, I'm not a freelancer. I work full-time as an HOD of an animation department. So I'm hiring a lot of freelancers all the time, and I have my people that I know I love to work with, and they are always the first people that I call to do stuff with because I enjoy working with them. They're pleasant to work with, they always have a positive attitude, and they're really just a joy to work with. And I have people that I worked with once and I said, never again. I scratched them off that database because they were just really difficult people to work with. Every second of the job was a nightmare. They were just negative. They had the opposite of a can-do attitude. They had a can't-do attitude. Everything was like, oh, I can't do that. It was an issue. They just caused endless problems, and you're not ever going to be called back by a client if you're one of those people. You want to be the first person your client contacts when they need that service that you can provide for them, that animated video, that character animation, whatever it is, that script, that design, whatever it is, you want to be the first person that they call. You want to be a problem solver, not a problem maker. Even if it is a client that you see as a one-time client, maybe they weren't very pleasant to work with and you don't want to work with them ever again, you don't want that relationship to sour. You don't want to burn that bridge because they might still refer you to their friends. So even if you have to tell them next time, oh, sorry, I'm fully booked, I can't work with you on this one, they'll still have that good feeling about you and refer your services to other people in their network. So it's always good just to be professional. And just remember that it's all you. There's no boss above you. There's no manager who's going to take the fall if you mess something up with your client. It is all you. You are the one getting the blame. You are the one getting the bad reputation if you're not a pleasant person to work with. Number 9, this is a quick one, but it's a really important one in my mind, dealing with a lot of freelancers and having been a freelancer, is be communicative. Be communicative. Communicate well with your clients. This is really important to further your relationships with people, to have them know that you're professional and dependable so they don't have to panic if they have asked you a question and you only answer 3 days later. That is not a good way to run a project. They are not going to feel secure, they are not going to feel taken care of, and to be honest, they're going to start feeling like, oh, maybe things are going wrong. Maybe I should start like nitpicking other things because they just don't feel safe and secure with you. They don't feel like their project is being taken care of, and they don't feel like you are taking them seriously as a client. I always found when I was freelancing that a prompt response really made people feel very confident in my abilities because they felt like I was professional, like I had things in hand, and like they didn't need to worry about stuff. So throughout the project, you should always be giving them updates, probably at least an update a day or every 2 days. Just let them know how it's all going, what sort of progress you've made. You can send them screenshots and little renders just so that they can see. And even that first email that a client sent you asking for a quote or whatever, you should respond as promptly as possible. Even if you can't do the quote right then, you should reply back and say, thanks, I've received your email. Thanks so much for contacting me. I'll get a quote to you by the end of the day. Just so that they know that you're a professional person. You're not going to leave them hanging. You're not going to screw them over halfway through the project and not finish it or whatever. They're just going to be worried that you're going to run away with their money, or that they've now put their faith and time into you and you've wasted all this time. So just be as communicative and professional as possible with your clients. And number 10 is don't sell yourself short. Don't work for peanuts, okay? Don't work for these really rubbish, low-paying jobs. Unless I would say there's one of 3 situations that you could find yourself in where that would be sort of understandable or okay for you. So number 1 is if it's literally your dream job, like Riot Games or something called you up and they for some reason didn't have a super big budget for this thing, or they just wanted to try you out or whatever the reason was, it is your dream job. It's your dream studio that you want to work for. It's not going to pay very well, but it's a really good way for you to get your foot in the door, or at least have that stuff to put on your reel for other studios to see that you've done this type of work. okay then. If it's going to further your career, yes, you can do it, but don't do it, as a common thread going forward. You need to be very careful that if you do that one job for them, they're not going to expect the same thing again a few months down the line or going forward, eternally, that you're just going to work for really shitty pay. So that's the one situation where it might be okay to further your career because you have a very clear goal of why you are doing that to help your career. Second is if you just plain old don't have a lot of experience, maybe it's one of the first jobs you're going to get. You need that work, you need that experience, you need to put something that you were paid to do by a client onto your show reel. So yes, I did it when I started out. I worked for very low pay for quite a few of my jobs just to build up my reel, and it worked for me. It helped me because, afterwards people could see that I had done this professional work, I had professional experience, and then they were confident in hiring me. So if you're in that situation, you're just starting out, then yes, do your first few jobs for really low. But if you're already a few years down the line, you're established, you know what you're doing, don't sell yourself short. And number three, the third example where this might be something that you could consider, is if you are already established, but you are really struggling to find work. Sometimes it's really dry out there. It's through no fault of your own. People are just not hiring. The industry does actually go through ebbs and flows. And if you've been in it for a while, you would know that. So maybe you're in one of those ebbs. You had a lot of work 3 months ago, but now there's absolutely nothing on the horizon. Then you kind of have to settle for a low paying job because half a loaf is better than no loaf. So if you're in that sort of situation, you have nothing else coming up, you've got to pay your bills, you've got to take care of your family, then yes, take on that work, do it. But you should try and negotiate with them. If you know your work is absolutely 100% worth more, then try and negotiate it up with them, or try to negotiate the spec down so that it's still a fair amount that you're getting paid for that amount of work. So if they want some Pixar level shit and they want to pay you like a ridiculous amount, try and negotiate down so that they can have better expectations of what their budget can achieve for them. So at least then you're both in a more fair position. You're not really selling yourself short as much, and where it was a job that they expected something amazing that was going to take you 2 months, you can at least negotiate it down so that the specs of the job are a bit lower and it only takes you 1 month, leaving you open next month for something that might come in that would be a little more fair for you, a bit better paying. You don't want all your time to be now taken up by this ridiculous job that's paying you nothing, but you're making some really high quality work for them. So it's always good to discuss with your client, just try and make them understand that their job doesn't really fit what they're asking for. You can show them what your usual rate is, say, I'm happy to give you a discount now for this, just to help our relationship, as a show of faith. But moving forward, this is the usual rate that I would charge for this level of work, just so that they understand and they don't expect that from you next time if they do contact you again for a job, and you're not screwing yourself over by working for really shitty pay, doing this really high level stuff. But otherwise, if it's just some dime a dozen run-of-the-mill job that you can get any day of the week, you're not like dry on jobs, you're not really desperate for the money, it's not the start of your career, it's not your dream job, at the dream company you want to work for, then just plain old don't do it. If you don't need to do it, don't do it. Don't take on that job. The thing is, if you keep doing it, if you keep selling yourself short, it's not going to be a sustainable career because you're not going to be able to pay your bills with that ridiculous amount you're getting paid, because you're going to be doing all this work. You're going to be doing like a month's worth of work for a week's worth of pay. You just can't live your life on that. So you don't want that to become a habit for yourself, and you don't want your clients to just expect that from you either. And the thing is, I've found, and a lot of professionals have found, that if you're doing this really low quality work and these are the sort of clients that you are mixing with, those are the clients you're going to keep getting, because you're not getting the budget to create that higher level, higher budget stuff. Your reel is going to be full of that low level crap. So it's better just not to dig that hole for yourself, because it can be a little difficult to climb out of that hole afterwards. It also affects the entire market when you agree to work for so much less consistently, because that becomes what clients expect from animators or freelancers. And it just skews the entire market, the entire industry. The pay levels are going to go down if that's what everyone is settling for. So you're really affecting not just yourself, but the entire industry by not demanding fair pay for the work that you're doing. So on that accusatory note of you potentially destroying the entire industry by agreeing to work for less than you're worth, I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, think about subscribing. If you don't want that kind of commitment, then that's cool. I totally understand, but at least hit the like button. If you didn't like the video at all, I'm kind of wondering why you watched all the way to the end, but you know, I'm not mad about it. I do have a Patreon set up now, so if you want to help support the channel that way, that would be totes awesome, and I would love it very much. Thanks for watching, guys. Love ya. Bye!